Hello, today I'm going to demonstrate the Shadow Secrets Lab. Um, what we're going to do is essentially use the front end component of John the Ripper, which is a password cracking tool, and a program called Unshadow, which will take a shadow file and a password file and bind them back together. We're going to do a few other things, generate some passwords, and demonstrate password cracking. Now, we're not going to be using very complicated passwords, and we're literally going to be using things like dictionary words. So you would expect a an attack on a reasonably complicated password to take a little bit more effort than this. Part of the reason I'm demonstrating this is that the instructions in the lab are not entirely clear. It makes reference to the program you need, but doesn't really indicate that you need to install it first. So actually the first thing we need to do before we do anything else is install Johnny. Now, Kali comes out of the box, as it were, with John the Ripper. If you go under password attacks, you'll find John the Ripper. Um, and what we're going to do with the Johnny program, you can also do at the command line with John the Ripper, but the GUI makes it a little bit easier to do. So the first thing we want to do, and as you can see, there are a bunch of other options. Offline attacks, um, let's see, there's change NT password. Change NT password is actually a fairly useful one if you're trying to break in, rather, if you're trying to regain access, shall we say, to a Linux box, a Windows box, which is legitimately yours, but for which you have, say, forgotten the passwords. You can use a program like this to reach into the SAM, the SAM, which is one of those 5 main components of the Windows registry. Um, alter passwords, remove them, unlock accounts, etc. Um, there are a number of tools like this inside the UBCD distro, the Universal Boot CD distro. Some of them are run from inside Parted Magic, and others of them kind of boot a very, very simple Linux, and then immediately give you access to the Windows NT offline password tool. I've actually done it both ways. I used to have a lot of success with UBCD, and it was my go-to. But more recently, UBCD hasn't been really able to boot Dell Optiplex and Precision PCs reliably. It seems to kernel panic rather than getting in and doing what I needed to do. So I stopped kind of using that option. I've actually used change NT password a few times. The thing that I learned doing that is that you can if you have a change NT password, you may still actually have to get a new version of it, update it, install it, grab a new program, change your paths or your symlink, something like that. It is going to be a slightly complicated process. So if this is something you think you need to do your research and go from there. So online attacks. That's Hydra. THC Hydra is another major one. Let's see, password profiling, and then of course there's John. So I've maundered long enough. The first thing we need to do is to install Johnny. Sudo apt get install Johnny. Boom. Let me make sure that actually worked. So we'll go back to password attacks, and there's Johnny. Good. Now, we're not going to use it right away. We need to set some things up. I need to create some new users, etc. But this is what it looks like. So I'll close this, and I'll clear. So the next thing I need to do is the next thing we're going to do is create a file. Let's see. I actually kind of already did this. So you can do sudo open SSL passwd get one So what I've done, let me cat. That's not what I wanted to do. Obviously, I hit P too many times. Notice that these are hashes. What the SSL program is doing is basically creating a hash of the word of a password hash of password 1 and assigning it to that value there. Strangely enough, these two variables are they have, as far as I know, they have the same value, but they came out differently. It could be that this has happened because they were salted differently. So the next thing we need to do is go to, we're going to use Johnny to to look at this file now that we have it. Johnny. So we're going to open a password file. We're going to open it in password format. And we're going to look at open. And so, okay, so it cracked it. Let's do another one. And it's going to think for a minute. I think I had already done the first one, which is why. Cracked it. Okay, good. So a simple password like this will crack almost instantly. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new user account. So I'll go back to my terminal. Actually, I think I have too many. Close that one. Close that one. Okay. Yeah. Close that one. Okay. So what I want to do now is sudo add user. And I'm doing it this way. You don't technically have to do it this way, but it does save you some trouble if you wanted to do user add and then the password, because these are dummy accounts and we're not actually going to log into them with anything. Let's call this one. Actually, let me do something first. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is cat out my Etsy password file. Okay, so what I did there, I catted out my Etsy password. We'll deal with this file again in just a minute. I also searched for anything that has a home directory in /home. All of your backend accounts will have non-existent home paths or bogus home paths. Look at their Moredo, DNSMask, the SSH daemon, Postgre, Sane daemon, the color daemon, the light desktop management, all of it. So what I can do is sudo add user Phoenix. And the password is going to be like 1. And I'm going to add another one. Sudo add user toast. Okay, yeah. This is what I'm actually trying to do, anti-disestablishmentarianism. So this is going to take a minute. Let me pause this. Okay, so what I have done is, the reason that took so long is that the password for this third account is supposed to be anti-disestablishmentarianism, which according to dictionary.com is a noun. Opposition to withdrawal of state support or recognition from an established church, especially the Anglican Church of 19th century England. Technically speaking, it's the longest non-technical word in the English language. There are lots of other much longer technical words, but most of them are the names of chemicals. So let's look at the Etsy password file again. Okay, so here we have it. There's me, there's the system daemon core dump thing, and then there's these three new names, Phoenix, Toast, and Taffy. These are names of dogs. And notice that they all have bin bash and host names. Now, what we're going to do is let's see, what we're going to do now is use Unshadow and John the Ripper to crack these programs, crack these passwords. But I'm almost out of time, so that's going to be the next video. Thank you. Be right back.